Welcome to She Rebel Radio, the podcast for high-performing women leaders who want to unlearn conventional rules, leave prestigious careers, and launch businesses of significance. Each week, She Rebel Radio brings you insights and advice from women entrepreneurs who transformed their prestige prisons into daring entrepreneurial success stories. Now, here is your host, Lulu Minns.
Welcome to She Rebel Radio episode 9, where I want to share with you today why Facebook Lives can be more powerful than your website and my top tips in getting started. And stay with me during this episode because whilst creating this episode, I came up with an awesome challenge for you and the opportunity to get some personal feedback from me with your Facebook Lives in the She Rebel Club with Lulu Minns. So dive into the episode and I will share with you at the end the offer that is going to be available throughout October. Now, why do I firstly say that Facebook Lives are more important than your website? And when I say that, I mean it's more important than your website in terms of creating clients, for sure. A website will not create the clients for you in a relationship-based type business, and relationships always create business as people by people, and a website is a really important tool as a check back point on your credibility and research about you and maybe previous articles and client testimonials and all that kind of stuff. But it won't be the thing, and this is a common misconception, and it was in my first business, that just getting a website would create all the clients for you without you having to do anything. Those days have gone. It's far more complicated than that, but we have all sorts of amazing platforms to use to assist us in that client creation process if they are used correctly. And Facebook Lives has always been a massive one for me, and one that people ask me about and also comment that I'm great on video, how do you do that, etc. So I really wanted to share with my top tips with you today and share more about how I got started, because it's very easy to look at other people's chapter 10 when you're on chapter 1 and think that you're never going to get there and think they just popped up on a video one day and, you know, we're just rocking it and creating clients from it and getting comments and feedback, and that may be the videos that you see and not the videos that haven't really got any interaction, because that absolutely happens, still happens to me now. It always happens, and certainly when you're starting out, certainly now as well, because there's so much more out there. And I see a big mistake, and I talked about this in my 5-day mini challenge of 5 obstacles that are getting in your way of creating clients. So in terms of the myths of social media, and also people doing things that, you know, were a couple of years ago. So to get social media to work for you, you always have to be kind of a couple of steps ahead of the game and using those tips, etc., from other people, but bearing in mind that what people are telling you, maybe what worked for them a good few years ago, and there are always more challenges that come with that, because the more successful a platform is, the more people start to use it. But that doesn't mean, and the more, you know, we hear people say it's getting loud and noisy and people are rejecting social media, but that doesn't mean that those platforms do not still have their place and that they're not still really, really helpful to you, particularly if you're in a service-based business where that relationship with your clients and customers is the most important thing. In my opinion, Facebook Lives is one of the quickest ways, if not the quickest way, to create potential clients and leads, etc., from sharing your tips, from sharing your stories and all of that. So whilst I say that, however, an important caveat for this is it's not for everybody. So first check in and maybe listen to this episode and then make some decisions as to whether this is a platform you want to use or not. And we hear many experts saying across the board, it's all about video, more and more about video and voice note recognition and all of that. But you really have to check in what's right for you, because what I always say is if it feels off, it's off. And if it feels not right for you, then it's not right for you. But if it's just out of your comfort zone and it feels hard right now, then that's totally fine, because you can move through that. And there are 4 core areas of competence, which I'm going to take you through and touch upon in a minute. which you can check in with. Now, if you're quite introverted, I don't want you to use that as an excuse that Facebook Lives are not for you, because I am actually quite naturally introverted, and most people don't believe me when I say that because of the fact that I show up on Facebook Lives. I'm very sociable when I'm in networking events. I'm hosting this podcast. I do love to talk, that's for sure, but I'm probably only like that about 30% of the time, and the rest, the 65, 70, 60%, whatever you want to call it, there's some like 10% that I'm hanging around in the middle, doing a bit of both. I am, reading books, going down the beach, practicing yoga. I'm more than happy to spend time on my own. Definitely need to do that to process things, process emotions, put stuff like this together. And that's super important. So I consider myself as a natural introvert, and I get up and do it. And actually, I think Facebook Lives is an amazing platform for those introverts that like to sit in their pajama bottoms and still share things with clients, with the world, without leaving their house or standing up on a stage in front of God knows how many people. So it's definitely my preferred choice to share. And it's something that you really start to get used to. And I don't know if you remember me saying in the first episode, I used to have my own radio show on, pressing a tape player and talking to myself. And my nephew said to me once, he was sitting in the corner when I was doing video to my members group, and asked me why I was talking to myself. And it was that light bulb moment that I thought, I'm not talking to myself. And actually, this is something that I've always done, i.e. when I was little, that was a real respite for me as that introvert, away from family, away from noise, and to share, my thoughts. It's like Dear Diary, my thoughts and things like that. So, don't use the introverted excuse. That doesn't mean that Facebook Lives are not for you. So let's dive in. The competence, the 4 stages of competence as talked about in psychology, is firstly unconscious incompetence right through to the unconscious competence, which the latter of that, the unconscious competence, is when you just do something. You've done it so many times that you don't even need to think about it anymore. You've acquired the skill set to be able to just do it standing on your head. So driving is a great example of that. Me being a court advocate as well, I was a court advocate for not all of the 11 years, but I was hanging out in courts for most of it. At least 9 of them, maybe 9.5. And I remember the first time I stood up on my feet in court, my legs were absolutely shaking like jelly. I remember the first time I jumped on a Facebook Live and, someone commented and it really threw me off, and, actually dreading that people coming on and actually watching. And now none of that bothers me, although I still have to say I certainly prefer doing lives in my group because people choose to be there and that's my audience, than I do anywhere else. So you also don't need to force yourself to do them on your personal page if that doesn't feel right to you. If you don't want to run your business in that way, always do what feels right to you. So it's about moving from that unconscious incompetence, which is actually when you don't even recognize that this is maybe a skill that you need or that you need to learn certain things to move through. And you may, however, be at the conscious incompetence phase where you recognize that there's a deficit there, that you need to show up and get out of your comfort zone and maybe make the mistakes that you need to make in order to learn and move through to conscious competence, which is when you can really do something, but you really have to focus and concentrate on it in order to make it happen. And I've probably been fluctuating between those two things in the middle with getting this podcast there out in the world. So, I can't wait until it becomes the unconscious competence phase. And actually with Facebook Lives, what I would say is I probably fluctuate between the conscious competence and then the unconscious competence, depending on what day it is and how I feel. So as I said, don't compare someone's chapter 10 with your chapter 1, and, see where you are in that sliding scale, but don't let it put you off. So my first top tip is preparation is key. It's absolutely key in getting your Facebook Lives right and how you want them, and bearing in mind that that's not going to be without making mistakes. And I almost love Facebook Lives for this, because you can make mistakes and you can't switch it off and just restart it, because sometimes you already have people watching, so you've just got to kind of crack on. And again, that's quite attractive to me, because court was like that. If you mess it up, you've just got to carry on. You can't tell the client to, or the judge or the court magistrates that tell them not to hear what you've said. You've just got to kind of crack on with it, and I like that, instead of fiddling around detail. it kind of suits me. But preparation is key, as it is before you go into a courtroom, right? You've got to prepare. So one of the first things, however, I would say for you to prepare and consider is finding an area, preferably within your home, that is good for you to do Facebook Live. So it's fairly quiet the majority of the time, and that it has the right lighting. That is so, so crucial. When I see people do videos where they're kind of like huddled in the dark and it just looks like they're in a squat or, you know, some homeless shelter or something like that, it just doesn't look good. So find an area. Mine has always been in my office facing the window, because the light comes in, and that, you know, when you take a photo and the window's behind you, the light's behind you, it looks shit. That's the same with a video. You want to be facing the light and the natural light falling on your face, because it will look so much better. And that's how I started. And then I brought a ring light, which also has like a clip that goes on the windowsill. So that holds my phone, where I use my iPhone to do Facebook Lives, and then it plugs into my computer and it has different levels of light. So if it's a bit dull outside or whatever, I usually put it on anyway, because again, the light looks so much better. And since then, I've decorated my office, and I have a nice blue wall in the background and a map in the background, and that dark navy blue is part of my brand. And you know, people have said to me also, I love your videos down the beach. I've done, you know, many down the beach with using a little tripod, and even like using a wobbly hand when I first started, that's the place people almost know that that's where my videos are going to be, and it kind of becomes a home base for them as well. So absolutely crucial, because sometimes when you get excited and you might want to share something, that you have your little area that you can go to, that you know that you can create the right lighting if you need to do it. You can buy a ring light on Amazon, quite cheap. There's some quite expensive ones as well, but do your research and buy one that's quite cheap. And if you want to reach out to me, by all means email me and ask me what my one is, because I can't remember just off the top of my head right now. And also crucial to this in the preparation is finding the camera and looking at the camera rather than the screen itself. And I remember making this mistake initially of looking at myself on the screen rather than the little camera, which is at the top of the iPhone. Mine's like an iPhone 7. So find the camera, keep your gaze on that and not on the screen itself, because then you look super weird and your eyes flick up and you get like weird white bits and it's all a bit strange. So preparation is key. So find your lighting, find your space in your home, and find the camera on what device you're using. Super important. Number 2 is make notes and consider what calls to action that you're going to make. So don't just feel like you need to jump on a live and just share anything without some kind of notes and structure. And in fact, I would advise you not to do that, because then it will just run away with you and it might be quite boring and there's no real intention and no real value, because what you're offering is free value and free content to those people that potentially are interested in your products and services. So you want to make sure it's done with intention. So choose a topic, a title that will grab attention. So one of those for me, I'm trying to think what episode of, it was also a podcast, is 3 mindset shifts to make your side hustle a full-time one. That was also a Facebook Live, which again grabbed people's attention. Those people that have got a side hustle and a main job and want to make it, they knew it was for them, and they knew I love to do that, is to break things down into 3 key tips or 5, or you've probably noticed that through the podcast as well, because that really gives some focus of attention to your client, to your listeners, potential clients, of what it is that they can expect. They might want to grab a piece of paper and a pen and write those things down, but also it gives you a real focus to make sure you deliver the content that you want to deliver, and that it's kind of super focused. So I would start with 3 and keep it super short when you start. And this is kind of the meat in the middle of your Facebook Live. So start off with the title, introduce it via the title, which again, if you've watched my videos, it doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes I put a title in, then I jump on, I've forgotten what I've called it. So totally be yourself as well. That's the tip. But choose a title, open with the title, share your 3 things that you want to share, and then close with a call to action, which might be to comment on the video. That's a call to action. Maybe you've asked a question, then ask people to comment on the video. It could be that they can download a free something or other from you, an opt-in. It could be that they could book a call with you. It could be that you've opened the doors on your program, whatever it is. It could be that you have, 10% off voucher for your product. So they need to email you or, drop an emoji below to be eligible for that, whatever it might be. It could be to share the video. So really think about the call to action as well. So these are all things you can do before you even jump on the live. Number 3 is practice. Practice, 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 and practice some more and get feedback. So I started doing videos before Facebook Lives were even a thing. And I'm trying to remember what year they became a thing. I think it was 2016. So I was doing videos in 2015, and I had a mentor at that time in a ready-made business who I sent them to, who was giving me feedback. And that was super, super helpful, because she was saying to me, you're a bit lawyerish, you're a bit corporate, you're not really like that in person, and I was sending them thinking they were quite good. And then I was like, oh, am I? Am I not really like that in person? And I remember sitting on the stairs in my house with a little iPad that I used a lot of the time. It was before I had my Mac. I couldn't afford to buy a Mac at the time. I'd left my job without any plan, left my prestigious position without any plan whatsoever, and just recording it, and the cat putting his bum in the screen and, doing it over and over and over and again, and then sending it to my mentor, who's then like, yeah, it's not really you. And, there comes the real conscious incompetence to the conscious competence, and the practice. And that's why I repeat, don't compare your chapter 1 with someone else's chapter 10, chapter 20, because you don't know what they have done to be as good as they are at what it is that they are doing. If you think they're good at what they're doing, that is. And on top of that, what I would say is, as I've said, I'm quite introverted and super shy at school. And whilst I was chosen to narrate quite a lot, I totally avoided any of that stuff at university for the most part, until I did my law degree and my legal practice course. So I had to do all the advocacy training. I've stood up in court for years. So, I have that training in terms of presenting and things like that. But actually some of that training was helpful, and some of it I really had to undo and strip back and become more Lulu in the Facebook Live. So I totally know that being yourself within that is key, because people, that's really, what makes you you is really what makes people connect with you. So people have said to me quite a lot over the years, I like, it's funny that you sort your fringe out, or you've forgotten something, or, which is why I don't over worry about it. Sometimes the camera isn't the right place where I've started. And I certainly resonate with those kind of videos rather than this perfect, particularly for women, because it is so, destructive for us to think that other women in particular are perfect, and that we need to be perfect as well. And when we talked about imposter syndrome on episode 7, that I said, really striving for that excellence instead of perfection. And that was grit, really finding your grit. And your grittiness is finding that excellence over that perfection. And before that, just finding something that's good and a good place to start. A real strong tip that comes from my legal training, and again, I have good days on this and sometimes I have bad days. Sometimes it might depend where I am on my cycle and how my brain is functioning on that particular day, but definitely try and drop the umming and ahhing. And that was something I learned at law school, that silence is best. But as I said, I have my good days and my bad days, and I was like that in court as well. Some days you just like, oh, why do I keep saying all the time? Because it just sounds vague and unsure. So just really catch yourself out with that and just remain silent. As I just have, because that silence gives you an opportunity as a listener to just consider what it is that I've said. So number 4 is JFDI, just fucking do it. And I apologise for swearing, but I do swear, I'm just going to be myself. Just get on and do it. When you've done all those things that I've said, is just get on and do it. The real top tip is to play one of your favourite tunes. So I have certain songs that really get me upbeat. Some of them are freaking terrible, but they always get me in an upbeat mood, which again, I don't need to do that so much these days because I can kind of just switch it on when I need to. But if again, you've been working at home on your own all day, or you haven't spoken to anyone yet that morning, then, you need to get your energy up. I would also say your first video, maybe do it in a group that you feel really comfortable in and people that choose to be there and that are your tribe or similar to you. You're more than welcome to do one in the She Rebel Club at any time, just as a little intro video, a little practice. Tell us you're practicing. So do find us on Facebook and do that. And feel free, wherever you are doing it, to refer to your notes and say, because what makes you real will really connect with other people. Number 5 is review and repeat. So yes, I am going to ask you to watch it back, listen to it. And I do this and I still do it now. Sometimes I want to take some of that content out. Sometimes I just want to review it and think, how could I improve that? I might listen to it I might do a video and then go downstairs, make a cup of tea, make some lunch, and I might just watch it and be like, was that a good one today? Did I get my point across? And then repeat. Get back on there, do it again. The more times you do it, the better. And this was the same, again, as a court advocate. If I had 2 weeks off, I'd be a bit, going back into court because I hadn't done it for ages. Whereas when I really stepped into doing it every day, that real unconscious competence came in. And I quite often joke that, that first day I stood up and I made an application for legal aid for a client, my legs were shaking, I was petrified, I just had to say one sentence and I was repeating that sentence over and over in my head. And before I left the legal profession, I was kind of being told off for rolling my eyes because I was so just exasperated with the whole thing, and just really saying some quite cheeky things that needed to be said, in my humble opinion. But because I was in that real unconscious competence, I had that confidence that I would just say what needed to be said in a way that I would get away with it, which I never would have done in the first stage. But that's how you move through that process over that 8-9 years. So review it, watch it back, see how you can improve it, and then do it again within the week for sure. Then pick a particular day and time and make that commitment and show up and keep on doing it, because that's the only way you move through the process and really can utilize the power of Facebook Lives. So whilst recording this episode, what I would love you to do and to invite you, if you are brave and She Rebel enough, is to join us at the She Rebel Club with Lulu Minns group on Facebook if you haven't already, and to jump on and do a 1 or 2 minute introduction video about who you are, what it is that you do, so you can share with us your prestigious position and the business of significance, or meaning that you're getting out there into the world or trying to get out into the world. And finally, share your favourite She Rebel radio episode so far. So I've given you the structure of those 3 things to share, and I'm going to invite you to add a call to action in at the end of that video, anything of your choice. And if you are brave and rebel enough to join us and to show up live on video there, I will do a live audio feedback for you, either via Messenger, or if you provide your email address to us, that I will send it to you via email with some tips and some insights from me about the positives and the improvements that can be made. And it's a great opportunity to get that free feedback from me and also connect with an amazing community of like-minded women. So I hope you take me up on that offer throughout October. And if this is post that, then jump in anyway, and who knows, you can connect with some amazing women and I might just give you the feedback anyway. Have an amazing rest of the day. Thank you for joining me on She Rebel Radio. As always, you listening is much, much appreciated. Have an amazing day and I will speak to you very soon.
Thanks for listening to She Rebel Radio, the podcast for high-performing women leaders who want to unlearn conventional rules, leave prestigious careers, and launch businesses of significance. She Rebel Radio is executive produced and hosted by women's advocate and coach Lulu Minns. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. You can find Lulu Minns on Facebook and LinkedIn at Lulu Minns, and on Instagram at LuluMinns_biz. Until next week, keep rebelling against the rules and designing success your way.